Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Capes, Cows and Masks, the show where we uncover the world of soups and science fiction. I'm your host, Jake Hart. I'm a podcaster and a writer for Fresh Take Hub, and today I'm joined with two of my fellow co-hosts, David Osger and Tom Gapper. How you doing, boys?
Doing good, doing good.
Yeah, not doing bad. Although as a ginger, it's probably... So I can't enjoy... Yeah, I say enjoy the sun. It's more I go out for 30 seconds, go, this would be really nice if I had any other type of skin. And then heading back inside and hearing the children play outside. And I'm like, oh...
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. The sun's been shining. We've had the Falcon and the Winter Soldier finale. We had the Oscars. I'm sure everyone's got their own hot takes about the Oscars this year.
I'm just glad Anthony Hopkins won. Representing.
Yes, that's already a controversial opinion right there.
Me and Tom are there representing the country of Wales. We're on top of like an aquatic creature. Like, woo, go Hopkins.
That was absolutely hilarious when I saw that. God,
it was more hilarious when I saw all of the comments to that video, and I was just like, "This is beautiful. Well done, internet. You've done a good job today."
So yeah, we're gonna get into the news. We got a lot of stuff to cover. Pretty much all Marvel news. So especially off the tails of the finale of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But Tom, what have you been up to the last week?
Much the same as usual. I'm getting to some really interesting stuff in my Marvel read-through at the moment. It looks like the time-displaced X-Men are finally going home, which is I'm glad. God, that was a stupid plot point.
That is it, like the original X-Men?
Yeah, the original five X-Men. Bendis brought them into the main timeline because like the X-Men, like Scott was becoming a terrorist, and Beast was like, "I know what will fix this: breaking time."
I remember reading the Battle of the Atom stuff, and like I said, anytime I looked at their X-Men titles after it, I was like, they're still there? I was like, what? And I was like, I can't believe they've been there for that long. It's like, it doesn't make it, it's just that would surely, you can like turn up for a few weeks, but surely that would affect the timeline being there for just years.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the comics I'm on now where it looks like they're finally going to be leaving, I'm on 2018 now, so... Yeah, and I think Bendis brought them back. When was he on X-Men? Like 2013, 14, around then?
Yeah, that's the thing. When I look at new titles, I'm like, are they just throwing back to the original look now after the original ones were back? Or are they literally still there kind of thing? Because I've seen a few where Jean Grey has got a classic kind of yellow cowl and green dress and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's just because Hickman is there bringing the X-Men like into a new promised land of awesomeness and intrigue and swords. It's awesome. So everyone read Hickman's X-Men.
As you said off air, Tom, Hickman, when he comes in, rips your characters apart and then just leaves.
Yep.
And I'm really, really liking what he's doing with the X people. Mm-hmm. Dave, what about you, man? What have you been up to?
Yeah, just been checking out some new series. Netflix has got the Shadow and Bone, which has started up, so I thought that would sort of scratch the fantasy sort of itch, so I've checked out that. Obviously finishing things like Falcon and Winter Soldier and Invincible, going through a few more of the animated series that I've been watching lately, and then just trying to get back some films. As you mentioned, the Oscars have just happened, so it's a lot of watching people's coverage and that kind of stuff. But because of the cinema closures this year, I haven't had a chance to sort of look through a lot of the contenders. And if I don't probably watch them within the next few weeks, I probably never will. So probably going to look at watching some of the nominees now, especially as some of them are on streaming services, etc., or save the ones that are going to have cinema releases till they are in the cinema. I also watched through the entire, every film that Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee has made, and I still don't understand what Kung Fu is. So,
Dave!
Sorry, guys.
Dave! It's Kung Fu! What is there to understand?
It's not a superpower.
Right, that's it. You and Donnie Yen in a cage now, right?
Right, now you tell me that Donnie Yen hasn't got superpowers. Those fists, bro.
He is one with the Force, and the Force is with him.
Yeah. But yeah, I did watch it, man. I've been meaning to watch that for ages, not just because of Shang-Chi. So once that trailer came out, then it reminded me, I need to go back to this because it was on my watch list forever in Netflix.
Yeah, it's funny because you basically inspired me to do the same thing, and obviously talked about Shang-Chi last week, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to start watching some of these kung fu movies again. And started rewatching the Ip Man movies, and also watching some that I haven't seen before, like Warriors 2, which is a 70s one, and the 36th Chamber of Shaolin, which is another 70s one, which is pretty awesome. I recommend checking that one out. But man, watching these films this past week, like, there's just something about Eastern cinema action that Western cinema just doesn't.
It hits different, is what it is.
It hits so different. Like, the action is just so much more intense. Like, I really appreciate that a lot of actors from the Eastern cinema range, like, they learn to do martial arts so they can act and do the martial arts themselves. So that, that affects your viewing so much when the camera's on these people fighting and you can actually see their faces, not this, like, sort of dodgy, like, oh, watch out, so you don't see the stunt person's face or anything like that. So you've got to really admire them, how they do it. But it also made me really angry, as it makes me every year when the Oscars come round, that they still don't acknowledge stunt people. It just baffles me so much, and especially in this modern era of cinema, when there's so much action and we can do so many more crazy things now, stunt people are so much more involved. Why don't these people get acknowledged? It baffles me.
Well, that should be our next campaign. I mean, clearly Warner Brothers have been listening to us, hence why they've behaved themselves this week. So if we start this campaign now, Capes, Cowls and Masks for Best Stunt Actor, or just any stunt work award.
Just a stunt team, I think, yeah.
Yeah, team, actually, yeah.
Am I talking shit, or do you think these people need to be acknowledged in the Academy Awards?
Yeah, no, if you have a award for best visual effects, then why not? Because I think some of it comes down to that kind of snobbery that the Academy has for mainstream films. So something like stunts would be like, oh, this would just be dominated by the likes of a lot of action films and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, Suicide Squad won an Oscar, for God's sake. So if that can win an Oscar, then they should have no issue with something like The Meg or something winning. So yeah, I think that. And as you said, Asian cinema is a very good example for how choreography and fight sequences can actually be artistic as well. It isn't just about your kind of like smash, wham, ball up, kind of silly action. It can be very artistic as well. And, that could come down to a lot of things. And the Oscars is missing quite a lot of categories. I've always said that they should have a category for voiceover artists as well. Because, again, why are they any different to, Tom Hanks winning for a performance in a live action performance? Well, why is a voice actor not an actor as well? And some people will say, well, they should go into the actors category. Well, we never have seen anybody from the voice as a voice actor or a voice actor performance, or at least not one that springs to my mind, who's been nominated for an Oscar. So it comes into that kind of realm as well. I know the Oscars a few years ago tried out that kind of popular film category and were instantly like, no, sorry, we go back on that. We don't mean to do that. So maybe it's that kind of stuff is they're hesitant to do it. I know I recognize this year that they got rid of the sound mixing award, I think, as well, because I was confusing people. They had best sound editing and best sound mixing, and people didn't understand the difference between them. So now I think they've just got best sound. So again, I don't know if that's a good thing that they're sort of simplifying things, or whether it means that they're more open to changing up the categories.
Right, so let's get into the news then, because we got a lot to cover.
Tear up page 1, run that photo instead.
Headline?
Spider-Man, hero or menace? Exclusive Daily Bugle photo.
So the first bit of news, and I will say there is no DC news this week, and I'm actually quite thankful for that, because normally it's been quite negative regarding DC or Warner Brothers. So, if they want to take a couple of weeks off the spotlight, that's all good with us. So we'll head over to Marvel then. They've got a few news stories to talk about. Loki, the new Disney Plus series coming straight after The Bad Batch in June 11th. So Nate Moore, the Marvel Studios VP of Production and Development, man, I wish I had one of these titles, reveals the show was built with its extension in mind. So he was having an interview with IndieWire about the future of the MCU on Disney Plus, and Moore said Marvel always wants the possibility for more seasons. He points out that how Loki is most likely candidate to get renewed. So when he was asked, he says the one that comes to mind, and that probably isn't a secret, I think there's a lot of storytelling in Loki that's really irreverent and clever and cool, but also lends itself to multiple seasons in a way where it's not a one-off. So, we haven't even seen the first season. We have no idea what this show's going to be about. It looks crazy from the trailers, but they're already thinking, hey, this story could go on for multiple seasons. So, Tom, I start with you. What are your sort of first reactions to this?
Quite pleased, actually. I mean, we had discussed before some of our worries that maybe the story they were trying to tell in Loki would be a bit much to condense into 6, 7 episodes, however many it's going to get. So the fact that it can go on for two, maybe 3, even 4 seasons, I think that's good. I think that guy's right. The very premise of the show lends itself to a whole lot of storylines they could possibly go down. And even if the end result is that Loki gets put back in his own time, to eventually die as per the normal timeline, there's nothing to say that has to be done at the end of season 1 because he's working outside of time. It's like the end of season 9 of Doctor Who when Clara dies, but they get her soul back from the moment before she dies, and then she goes off to travel through space and time, and she can basically go on for as long as she likes, so long as she arrives back at that moment. So I think that's a neat workaround here. You could potentially have as many seasons as you want of this, and if it eventually ends with Loki going back, then it, no one can complain. No one can be like, why is he still sticking around for this, that, and the other? I mean, season 1 could be him helping out the time agency. I can't remember what they're fully called now.
TVA, Time Variance.
That's the one, Time Variance Agency. But then season 2 could be he comes at odds with them, and then season 3 is him trying to escape from having to go back, and they're there is just so many stories you could tell there, and him jumping through different periods of time, maybe even space as well, causing mischief and mayhem, trying to figure out what he wants out of his own destiny, whether he's beholden to his current one. Yeah, I would honestly want way more seasons than just one of this. WandaVision, it was clearly built as kind of a stepping off point for Wanda and Vision to do their own thing. So Wanda's appearing in Doctor Strange 2. Vision will probably appear in the inevitable Young Avengers thing that's going to happen. But yeah, I just think Loki, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or Captain America and the Winter Soldier now, they definitely kind of deserve more than just the one season. Not least of all because there were clearly some little issues with season 1 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier that maybe a couple more seasons could help flesh out and kind of maybe fix a little. But yeah, I'm just excited for the possibility of many years of Loki time travel nonsense, because maybe it'll make me forget that Doctor Who is kind of not good anymore.
Yeah, when I heard this news, I immediately thought back to what Dave said. I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, he said that there could be some sort of adventure of the week style storytelling with Loki, going through a different era of time in each episode. And I pushed back initially. I was like, I don't know if you have the time to do that in 6 episodes when you're also trying to tell this overarching story. I mean, look at, you can hear our review about some of the issues we had with Falcon and the Winter Soldier with some of those exact issues. But now if they're saying, we've got ideas for more seasons, then hell yeah. Give me this sort of a romp adventure of the week, pulpy, serial 1930s style adventures, going through time. It kind of reminds me of Star Wars and Buck Rogers and, Flash Gordon, that sort of pulpy adventure, but just going through time. And in a way, it also kind of reminds me, this feels like it's going to be a much better version of what Legends of Tomorrow is. I'm sorry for fans of the CW verse and Legends of Tomorrow.
It went really downhill after season 3, in my view.
Exactly. I actually enjoyed the first couple of seasons because it was that really fun, wacky time travel adventure. You didn't know what you were going to get, and each era you had the costumes and all that sort of stuff, so that was really fun. And if they're going to do that with Loki, I think that could be really interesting, but at the same time, judging from the trailer, there's something more darker and sinister at play here. So, and you know what, if you're going to give me more seasons with Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson and that chemistry together, which I'm already in love with from the trailer, then I'm 100% down for it. But Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I did think of that Adventure of the Week aspect of it as well, and because you have got the TVA, as you guys have mentioned, it gives you so much freedom and flexibility to go where you want. As Tom mentioned as well, the fact that we've got certain elements within Falcon and Winter Soldier, especially in regards to people who don't appear as they are. So I'm headcanoning right now that in Loki, we're going to have Hayward come in, I'm the power broker, takes off a mask, we see Sharon Carter. Sharon Carter is the power broker. She then turns into a Skrull form and is revealed to be a Skrull, then turns into Loki, who has been miraging as this entire thing. So
I genuinely thought you were going to say Mephisto at the end.
Well, we could, after Loki, maybe, let's give it a few more seasons before we get to that reveal.
And then he turns into the Mandarin.
Yes!
Yes, exactly. And then he turns into Ralph Boner and everyone's disappointed. No. Yeah, I think that, to me, my immediate reaction, though, isn't like, oh, yay, more Tom Hiddleston, more Owen Wilson, because, I don't know, Tom Hiddleston kind of was saying his goodbyes when he did Endgame, and I don't know, I've had an air, or I don't know if I've heard it or seen in some interview somewhere that he was like, oh, this will be a nice, sort of farewell for the character, for me or for him way personally. So, but I don't know, maybe he wants to carry on, but at the end of the day, these actors are still actors and they want to have a career and they don't want to be known as one character for the rest of their lives. So I can see that this series would maybe have a storyline which leads to Kid Loki or Lady Loki, as we have mentioned before, and they could easily carry it on in that way. So yes, while Tom Hiddleston might still be a part of it in some respect, I could see this as one of those series, like when you have a series which, say, has lasted 5, 10 seasons, whatever, and you sort of think back on like, oh wow, those early seasons, when I think of it now, what a different show this is, so you have certain series which remain the same all the time, but you have certain ones which just go off in completely different directions and change their tone completely. I can imagine this would be that type of show, because you might just start following some other side characters, some other version of Loki, some other, group of characters. So I could see that happening as well. So yeah, I'm excited for where it goes.
The thing is, you mentioned like the possible of him like changing to like Lady Loki or Kid Loki. It does make it sound like America finally got their Doctor Who adaptation off the ground.
Well, also the fact he can mirage himself, or whatever you want to call him, into anybody, like as you see, when you see him as Captain America.
He can mirage into me any day. What? What?
So
whoa, hello.
Whoa.
It could be confusing for a series, but maybe if they even want to have, like, they don't want to have Kid Loki or Lady Loki, but they just still want to have Loki, and Tom Hiddleston changes his mind or wants to go on to other things, he could be like, hey, I now look like this, so that could be a way of coming around the whole actor change thing, which they haven't really had in the MCU yet, apart from the obvious kind of
next
Brody and that kind of stuff. But they've never addressed it. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I was actually going to say that I never thought about that, but you brought it up. That makes total sense why they would go on for multiple seasons, because they can just get a new actor if Tom Hiddleston doesn't want to do it anymore, or if they see that his story has come to an end within the MCU. Because, yeah, I mean, the guy's been doing it nearly since the beginning, since the first Thor film. I kind of imagine he probably wants to go on and do other stuff. So, yeah, Kid Loki and Lady Loki are very good shouts, Dave. Right, so let's move on to the next bit of news regarding Marvel Disney+. Last week, we had news that Olivia Colman was in talks to join Marvel's Secret Invasion. But now we got another top-tier actor joining the cast, and that is Daenerys Targaryen herself, Emilia Clarke. She will be joining the cast of Samuel L. Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, Ben Kingsley Adir, and Olivia Colman. This cast is stacking up with a lot of stars. Dave, I go to you first. Are you excited to see Emilia Clarke in a Marvel project, and who do you think she could be playing?
I'm still just obsessed with this fact that we're going to get a character which has multiple ways of hiding themselves. And now we've mentioned Game of Thrones, I'm just thinking of the Faceless Men, where they like wipe away I'm like, oh my god, it's the Marvel version of that. We're going to have that as well. So Loki will take off a mask, turns out to be Arya Stark.
I was going to say.
She would actually be a really good Kid Loki and Lady Loki combined. Wow.
I was more thinking she'd show up and just go, so that's what's west of Westeros.
Yeah. But I could see that as a good casting. That would be like playing
Maisie
both.
Williams, yeah, not bad.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, like you guys, I'm a bit shaky on Emilia Clarke. I don't know why she just keeps, well, I can see why. She just takes a lot of genre stuff, and I kind of understand it from like an agency point of view. But at the same time, you know, look at people like Daniel Radcliffe, etc. They specifically said, you know, oh, I'm going to go down a different avenue, and they've done a lot of indie film and a lot of weird offshoot projects. Whereas the problem with Emilia Clarke is that she has gone, I am Daenerys, and then she's gone, I am also Sarah Connor. I am also this big character in Star Wars. So, yeah, I can't remember her name. Kira. So, it's, I don't know, it just seems like too many, you know, she's putting herself into too many big franchises, I feel, and it's a bit distracting when you have one of those actors who's just like, they're this, especially when she plays a lot of them very much the same. It's not like Johnny Depp or someone in which they're completely different in every role you see them in. So, I don't have, like, great expectations, especially when people are like, oh, maybe she'll be like Spider-Woman or something like that. And I'm like, please no. I don't want that. But even the aspect of her being a superhero, I just don't gel with. I don't vibe with. Because again, I just haven't gelled with her when she's been those kind of characters in Star Wars, Terminator, etc. Obviously, I think she's had a bit of a bad track record of going on to projects which are very troublesome and problematic. I think she even said on Terminator, everyone was just kind of laughing because they knew that they were on a bad film. So even in Game of Thrones, you know, obviously there's that infamous best season ever, you know, like, so she seems very aware of when she is in these terrible franchises, etc. So maybe that's, you know, what she sees it as. She sees it as a redemption, as a way of getting into something stronger. But again, I just think she's kind of got the Mila Kunis effect for me. It's just very much, I can't see them as anyone bar themselves. I think that they only work when they're kind of playing themselves almost. So like Mila Kunis, I find her very hard to buy into when she had that period of time in which she was trying to become more of a franchise actress, if you want to call her that. So, you know, especially when she was in like Oz the Great and Powerful, and then she was in, obviously, let's not have bad flashbacks to Jupiter Ascending, etc. So yeah, I don't know if she's someone like a shield agent or a sword agent or someone like that, or she's just a, you know, something different, like she's a villain, like she is a Skrull or something like that, then yeah, okay, that would be kind of cool. But I just don't want it to be, you know, Emilia Clarke as, you know, Marvel, insert Marvel hero here kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on board with you. I am not the biggest fan of Emilia Clarke's acting performances outside of Game of Thrones. I think she's fantastic as Daenerys Targaryen. She nails the part, you know what I mean? Season 8 aside, we're not going to talk about that here. But even in Season 8, you know, the writing of her is not her fault. The performance she gave was fantastic. But other than Game of Thrones, like Dave, she's just assigned to different franchises, and I'm just not buying it. She's either in these big franchises like Terminator or Star Wars, or she's doing these, you know, silly little rom-coms like that. What was that George Michael one she did like recently, like Last Wish or something like that? Last Christmas, there we go. And I was like, what the? Like, and it wasn't a good film. So, yeah, I'm just not a fan of her. But at the same time, there's been people I haven't been a fan of before. Marvel have cast them. Marvel seem to get it pretty spot on with their castings, I'd say 99% of the time. Like, rarely has there been a thing where I've gone, ooh, I don't know, like, about this person playing the character. Sometimes the writing lets them down, but I always think the performances from all the actors do bring it. So Marvel clearly sees something in her, so I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt because it's Marvel Studios. If this was any other franchise, I'd be like, man, whatever. But because it's the MCU, I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. Be really interesting to see who she plays. I just hope it doesn't become another Daenerys Targaryen type of character, like some form of Skrull royalty or something like that, because I can imagine she'd play it very much the same. I'm like, come on, let's see something different. Don't just play the same character throughout all these different franchises. So yeah, that's my sort of thoughts on it. Tom, where do you go with this?
Yeah, I mean, like, I've always been a fan of Emilia Clarke in Game of Thrones, as you said. Like, even when the writing was terrible for the character, she did her best with it. The best she can do. I think she has been just like unlucky in her roles. I mean, to be fair, coming out of Game of Thrones, if you're offered the chance to be Sarah Connor, I can't really be mad at her for taking that. And then, like, if the production was as troubled as they say, and it was a bad film, you might not want to give 100% in that. I probably wouldn't. So I don't know. I'm quite excited to see her.
That's a shitty attitude to have as an actor, though, even if you know it's a bad production.
True, but at the same time, it's like I can sort of excuse it. I can understand why maybe casting agents or producers might not be able to excuse it, but me as like just someone who watches the films, I can kind of be like, it's a shitty film. I'm not going to blame you for not giving it your all. But I think, like you said, Marvel do have a good track record with casting. Writing has sometimes let them down. Like, I'm still so mad that they got Christopher Eccleston in as a villain and they fucked it completely. I'm still to this day pissed off with how Malekith came out, because I was hyped as fuck to see Christopher Eccleston in the MCU as a big time Thor villain, and then he doesn't get to speak in English like at all. But anyway, with Emilia Clarke, I think I kind of agree with you. Like, I know loads of people are saying, like, well, she's going to be, like, Queen of the Skrulls. I would kind of maybe prefer it if they were going to go down that route of maybe have Olivia Colman as the Queen and then maybe have Emilia Clarke as, like, her right-hand woman. Because at least then you get to see her in a different dynamic where she's not the one, like, barking the orders in control. She's a bit more, I don't want to say subservient, but, like I said before, I would quite like a mix of, like, showing the Skrulls' aptitude for both science and religion. So maybe Emilia Clarke play like some high priestess who's like advisor to the Queen, who is Olivia Colman. And I think that would be good casting. I feel like having Emilia Clarke as the Queen of the Skrulls is too obvious. And as you guys said, it's just going to be more of what we've already seen from her. Like, I feel like she has got more range than what we have seen. I do think that there is a brilliant actor in there. I'm not sure a Marvel production is going to be what brings that out of her, but at the same time, so long as they like cast her sensibly and don't go down the obvious route, I think I'd be excited for it. And maybe even if she was just turned out to be a SHIELD agent or something, maybe not Skrull related, I could still be down for it. So
I think it also depends on who's directing the series as well, because obviously, as a director, one of your main jobs is to get the best performances out of your actors. And I do really appreciate that Marvel have, like they said, these are long films. They are sticking with one director throughout the whole series, like we've seen with WandaVision, Loki, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I think you can build more of a relationship there if you're doing all these episodes with the same director rather than a different director every episode. It is funny, though, that there still are, like, even if Emilia Clarke isn't the Skrull Queen, but Olivia Colman is, it's still some sort of typecasting, just like she was the Queen of the Crown. So
yeah,
you lose either way, whoever's playing the Skrull
Ben
Queen.
Kingsley Nadir is the Queen of the Skrulls then. And Olivia Colman is Super Skrull, and Emilia Clarke is Moondragon. Let's bring in Moondragon. Oh, wait, that would be typecasting. Damn it.
Let's move on to the next bit of casting news that we have from Marvel, which I don't know if this was actually meant to be said. So, Russell Crowe, who recently was cast in the next Thor film, Love and Thunder, was on a podcast this week and said the character he's going to be playing is Zeus. Wow. I don't know if he was meant to say this. I'm sure, again, as we've said, Marvel agents and Kevin Feige are on the phone straight away. Yo, Russell, what you doing, man? It's so funny because every actor that you see interviews with, every time they have an interview, they always have something to say about how secretive Marvel is and that they're always watching them. So it's really funny that Russell Crowe was on a podcast. It's like, oh yeah, I'm playing Zeus.
My question is, why wasn't it our podcast? How are we not getting Russell Crowe here? Come on.
If you can get in contact with Russell Crowe,
I'll find
fair
a way.
play.
Also, I think this was an Australian podcast, so they probably already had that going for them, that they were from the country that he has at least worked in and grown up in.
Well, I could put on it. Now, that accent was going Texan then. I don't know what was happening. Well, hi there, Russell. Why'd you like to come to Capes, Cows, and Masks? Throw another shrimp on the barbie.
Tom, what do you think of this? Do you think this is going to be a significant part? Could this be the seeds for Hercules possibly coming into the MCU? Or, because it's Taika Waititi, is this going to be a really funny death scene at the beginning or something with Gore the God Butcher killing Zeus?
The thing is, it's like I'm quite excited for the news. I don't think he's going to have like a meaty part in the film. I think he's either going to, like, as you said, get killed off like in sort of the first sequence of the film, or maybe he'll just like occasionally like show up, maybe to like sort of help Thor along, just like in occasional scenes, and then maybe dies like maybe halfway through or towards the end. So like you still won't have like a whole lot of him in the film, but maybe he's just spread out in the film a bit more. Even though I think like obviously Taika Waititi is hilarious, Thor Ragnarok was hilarious. I would personally prefer, if they were going to go down the route of opening the film with maybe like showing Olympus, Zeus is like partying it up or whatever, then Gore appears and just wrecks him. I think that kind of needs to be a bit more of a serious scene. I mean, it could start out funny where like before Gore shows up, maybe it's just Greek gods being Greek gods. And then like when he shows up, it just gets... Because bear in mind as well, it is Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher. I think there needs to be some element of gravitas within this film. As much as I love the comedy of Thor Ragnarok, and as much as excited to see that carry on here, I think they need some of those serious moments just because of how serious a threat Gore is. But also, yes, give me Hercules.
Well, let's not forget as well, quickly, with Jane Foster, she like is in the comics a cancer victim. So again, like a lot of people have said, well, is this going to be, Taika Waititi jokey? Because that character already is, got a very serious backstory behind it.
Well, again, with Taika Waititi, like, people forget he won an Academy Award last year for Jojo Rabbit.
Mm.
And if you watch that film, it's talking about really serious issues, during World War II, but he's also having fun with it. But his comedy doesn't detract from, the drama regarding it. And I also thought in Thor Ragnarok, none of his comedy detracted from the drama of what we were seeing on screen. Like, I go to Hela. Cate Blanchett was fierce, and you felt the threat of how powerful she was, but yet she was still having fun with the character and being overly campy and stuff like that. But you still felt that she was you still felt like she was a threat. And, Christian Bale, I was actually thinking about this week. I was thinking that his role in American Psycho, that type of performance, playing Gore the God Butcher, would be amazing. And to have, Taika Waititi's flair of humor in there as well, I don't know, I disagree with you, Tom. I think you could open this with a really threatening, dramatic scene, but Taika's humor is still layered and sprinkled throughout, and it doesn't detract from the drama. That's my take on it anyway. What do you think, Dave?
I'm just interested, like, how, like you guys, I'm interested. I can see it being something like this, whether it be the first opening scene, whether it's an introduction to the God Butcher aspect of that character. It could go either way with that. We've seen it, there's the Taika Waititi aspect of, like, you could go down the Matt Damon route of, like, he's in some sort of goofy scene. He could even be a part of those, like, players or something like that. There's the aspect of he's just used for a dramatic role, like what we mentioned, to sort of add some more weight to the Gore stuff. But I could also see him kind of maybe taking on the Anthony Hopkins Odin role in some ways, because Zeus is very much that type of character sometimes. So maybe Gore is killing all these gods, and then Zeus just gets away or something like that. And maybe Thor, whether it be Jane Foster or Chris Hemsworth's Thor, So come to him for advice or something like that, who he's just there as this kind of mentor figure or something like that. But the main thing I'm thinking is just, and again, because it's Taika Waititi, because we've seen Ragnarok, then I'm not that concerned, because we had so many elements in that. We had Planet Hulk, we had Hela, we had Ragnarok, we had all these things going on, and it's kind of the same here. You're thinking like, oh my god, Jane Foster, Thor, with the Guardians, the fact that, then you're bringing in the gods, so then there's the Greek gods. Does that mean then we're seeing like Egyptian gods and all, other kinds of gods as well? So that does put a bit of concern in my mind of just like how full is this film going to be. But again, Taika Waititi and Marvel has managed to handle that expertly before. So yeah, I've never known too much about like the Hercules Zeus kind of stuff with Marvel, so I'd be interested to learn more about that. Or Marvel just kind of might throw it out and just go, we're just doing our own thing with this. I think rather than though this film being too full, I think my main concern is more that like I was most excited by this film by the prospect of Natalie Portman as Thor, because again you're just like, oh my god, yeah, new Avenger. And I was sad that she wasn't in Ragnarok and she kind of left on bad terms from the Dark World, and she wasn't happy with that project. So I think that every time I see stuff like this, I'm like, oh, I hope this, again, I'm not saying it's not going to be a bad film or it's going to be like too overfilled, but I'm like, is this actually not going to be the film that I was expecting or wanting, that is still going to be very much a Chris Hemsworth gods kind of Thor movie, or is it actually going to be Natalie Portman as Thor? That's the lead character and story of this film. We shall see.
I think Kevin Feige and co understand the importance of having Jane Foster as Thor. So yeah, I think it will heavily focus on her and Gore the God Butcher. I really think Thor, Chris Hemsworth, was going to take a back seat in this film. He'll still be there throughout the film, but I think he won't be as prominent, because especially if he gets stripped of his powers, his powers go over to Jane Foster. There's not much that he's going to be able to do. And it's interesting that you mentioned Zeus could be like an escapee and has like a mentor of Thor, whoever the Thor is, because they're technically both gods of thunder. So, there's that as well.
I do like that idea as well, because I think there's been like some set photos or rumors that like Thor's goats are going to be there. Mm-hmm. And like he was using them like a lot during his like unworthy Thor time, when he just went by like Odin's son. And so yeah, I'm excited to see like if they do dip into that.
I want to see Thor the Frog.
I was going to say earlier, yeah. Yes. Thor, but a frog.
If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Taika though, isn't it?
It would be him or James Gunn, one of the two.
Yeah, they would make it work. They're the only two directors who I think could make it work. Yeah. Any other director, it would just not work.
Yeah, you'd come out of the film just going like, King Frog was a hero and a good man.
A good frog.
Right, so our next story is quite a big one. Caught me by surprise. As soon as this dropped, I immediately text Dave. I was like, Dave, look at this. And that is Sony Movies have signed a deal that will make all of their Marvel films go on Disney Plus after they've had a theatrical release, and their deal with Netflix that they recently did. That was also quite a big deal to have all of their films go to Netflix as a streaming service once they finish their theatrical window. So I did not expect this, a separate deal with Disney, to have all their Marvel stuff. So Dave, I go to you first. You being, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man guy, we're finally going to get these films on Disney Plus. What are your thoughts about this deal?
Well, I kind of get Vietnam flashbacks whenever I see Disney, Spider-Man, Sony deal, because it just goes back to that. Like we've had the pandemic, but those few weeks where the Spider-Man deal was like in the air and Tom Holland was like, please, I don't want to go. And everyone was just like losing their mind. Like that seemed like a year in itself, like how long that went on for. So every time I see something like this, I get like a shudder down my spine, like, oh God, not again. And especially again for Spider-Man fans such as myself, who had to go through years of being like, oh no, Sony still got the rights. Oh, they're going to make Spider-Man 4. Oh, no, they're going to make a new reboot. Oh, they've rebooted it. It's crap. And, blah, 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 blah. So it kind of makes sense to the Netflix deal, because you do think, oh, that's kind of weird that Disney is kind of still happy, like, yeah, have the Spider-Man films. But this makes a lot more sense now. They're like, yeah, you can go to Netflix as long as we can still have your Marvel Spider-Man stuff. So whether it means that we're going to get a lot more of this collaboration working together between studios now that they know things are more competitive, and that, you know, the market is sort of shrinking and there's so much importance on streaming and the IPs that you have. You know, I don't think Sony will ever want to lose Spider-Man. And we mentioned this, was it like maybe only last week or the week before, where we were talking about, is there likelihood that Tom Holland, etc., they will have the overlap of Morbius and Venom and that kind of stuff. And I'm still skeptical as to whether Kevin Feige will want to do that, even with this deal in mind. But I guess it kind, you know, it's a part of the empire that Disney's looking to do, isn't it? They want everything on Disney Plus. They want to have the complete MCU stuff. I think that's the main goal of it. And we've seen already that they're happy to put on the old X-Men films and the crappy Fantastic Four films onto their service, so they could easily, you know, put on the Amazing Spider-Man and just put it under, you know, the Legacy banner or whatever, and so they can be like, yeah, you know, we don't associate with that. I think it's interesting to see. It's just an ever-evolving situation. You just kind of have to just wait and see as to how things are going to turn out. I think the Marvel is very much keeping their cards close to their chest, because they don't know what's going to happen. If, what's his name? But Gollum was the director of Venom.
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis. I kept wanting to say Andy Samberg, and I was just like, that's not his name.
That would be a completely different movie, man. A completely different
Can you imagine
movie.
Andy Samberg as Gollum?
I think he has been Gollum, actually, in one of the Lonely Island videos. But so, yeah, Andy Serkis directed Venom 2. I think, like, if that went well, for example, like the Carnage sort of film, they'd be like, oh, well, maybe we do want to have a bit of involvement in this now. Whereas, you know, at the moment, they're like, oh, you know, we'll keep clear of that kind of critically unaccepted Venom film. So I can see them still doing this kind of like, you know, we'll pick what we want elements in the future. But I still think that if Sony is going to continue to make their Sonyverse, I still don't think that the MCU or Disney is going to want to do that, because we know that Kevin Feige, we had those Netflix Marvel television shows, and I'm sorry, Tom, again, as much as you love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Kevin Feige was like, if we're not writing it or making it, I don't want them to be in my shows. You know, like we've seen, now that the Netflix deals are gone, he can easily more have Daredevil, etc. pop up into those franchises, because nobody is like working on that character at the moment. And I think it'd be the same for this. I don't think that they would want to take Sony characters, put them into the MCU when he doesn't have a say about what they're doing right now at that time. He doesn't want them to be in Eternals or whatever, and then some other projects going on which they don't have control of, and is actually ruining their canon or their story or the credibility of that character. So be interesting to see how it goes along, whether it means the Marvels is going to get more and more Spider-Man control and a bit more collaboration with their Spider-Verse, or it just means that they're putting the little bow on the kind of like we have the MCU together in the Disney streaming service.
Yeah, all good points. I think that a couple of things. First of all, on the business side of things, Sony making this deal both with Netflix and with Disney Plus is genius, I think. You know, now with the streaming wars properly heating up, you know, what streaming service are you going to sign for, creating all this different content, Sony realized, right, how are we going to get into this game without actually spending a lot of money and creating a streaming service? Boom. Just sign a deal with Netflix. The hard work's done for you, and sign a deal with Disney. Their subscriber rate is growing crazy. Like, it's absolutely insane. Like, with each Marvel show coming out, it just keeps pumping up the numbers. It's ridiculous how fast they're progressing. HBO Max are progressing at a good rate, and obviously Netflix. You know, I don't know if Netflix can actually reach any more subscribers at this point.
I think that it's like there's got to be a peak. I don't.
Yeah, there's got to be like there's only so many countries that Netflix is available in. So
there's only so many grandmothers and parents that can understand how Netflix works.
So yeah, I think props to Sony for doing this deal. And in relation to this, a couple of weeks ago, as I said on the show, I was like, look, I think after this No Way Home deal, a film, that's it for Sony and Marvel. I was like, they're going to take Tom Holland, they're going to do their own thing with him. They've got the Venom, they got the Morbius. They're just going to do, thanks Marvel, and then they're going to head off. Thinking that was going to be a huge mistake because they need the MCU. That's the reason they're doing so well at the minute is because of the MCU. But now with this deal, I'm a 180. I'm just like, no, I think their relationship is now going very well. And this deal is a big deal. So you don't make this type of deal without actually having future content in mind. So now I'm kind of thinking Tom Holland might stick around for a few more movies within the MCU. Yeah, like you, Dave, I don't think they're going to mix the Morbius Venom stuff involved. I think Sony want to, but, Kevin Feige's very protective of the MCU, so I don't think he's going to allow that. But if Sony had their choice, I think they definitely would. But they're still going to continue doing their own thing there. But I think this is good news for the future of Tom Holland in the MCU. Tom, what do you think?
Well, before I kick off,
I thought it was Tom Holland then. I was like, oh my God, we got Tom Holland.
Yeah.
It's Tom Holland.
Yes, I'm Tom Holland. Oh, yes. So, no, just failing with the accents today. But, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure, when we did have that whole hoo-ha about, Sony being like, we're taking Spider-Man away, and then Disney being like, wait, what? Hang on. Which, to be honest, always kind of seems to me like a Sony power play, considering, how, Endgame had just happened. They were bigging up Spider-Man to be, this next big face of, the MCU, going to be in the Avengers and all that. And then all of a sudden, Sony are just like, oh, no, we want to take him away from you now.
I think it was the other way round, though. I think it was more of a Disney being like, sorry, we can't reach a deal, ta-ra, So I think it was more a power play on Disney's point because they wanted more money and Sony was like, no, we're not doing that. So they're like, yeah, no worries, bye. And they were like, oh my God, we didn't expect them to actually leave, So.
They didn't think they were going to leave.
Yeah.
But I do think, just this whole thing, from the moment we found out Spider-Man was going to be in Civil War up until this moment now with this huge, massive deal, it does seem like Disney are kind of just slowly wresting more control from Sony and just slowly they're taking the Spider-Man stuff away. But going back to my original thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in that whole thing where they then made a new deal, I was always under the impression that it was another multi-film deal, maybe just one more solo film, but then he'd be appearing in the Avengers or maybe some other team of films.
I think so. Yeah.
I was always I thought it was a 3 or 4 movie deal or something. I don't know. But as you said, Jake, this new deal now, as you said, it's a massive deal. It's people may on the surface just be like, oh well, the Spider-Man films are going to be on Netflix and then they're going to be on Disney Plus. It's the fact that they will go to Disney Plus, which is hold on a minute. And as you said, you don't make deals like that if you're not planning on making new content going forward, especially if Sony has seen how successful Disney Plus is and how just it's exponentially growing its subscriber rate. They would be fools not to take advantage of that, even with the deal with Netflix. Because, don't get me wrong, Netflix is still a titan in the industry. It still cranks out some great shit. But from my perspective anyway, it seems like new Netflix shows don't get the hype they used to. Whereas right now, Disney, anytime they have anything coming out, people are just whoomp on that.
Well, Netflix is doing really well in terms you think of, again, personally speaking, as 3 comic book nerds, I think you look at things like Bridgerton or something, which again, I have no interest in Bridgerton, but it's still one of the most streamed shows of this year / last year.
Was that a wholly Netflix thing, was there? I didn't know that. See, yeah. I didn't know it was
The Crown.
Yeah, The Crown. Yeah. They've got so many things, but it's very much catered towards loads of different audiences, and there's loads of people who love that kind of Tiger King stuff, and they're like, oh, the missing case files of blah 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 blah. People love that kind of murder, investigation.
The unsolved murder of Derek Arsehole.
Yeah, we should start a true crime podcast, guys. So people love that true crime stuff. There's loads of things on kids stuff. Obviously, I think Disney's popular because it's kind of a babysitting service, but also Netflix. On the top 10, they always have that baby program, and I'm like, what is this baby thing? Which looks like a knockoff Rugrats. So, but Tom's right. They've still struggled to get a strong IP, which they're obviously trying to do with things like Jupiter's Legacy, Shadow and Bone. They're constantly Lock and Key. They're constantly throwing out these kind of like fantasy superhero things, and they still have never had that Stranger Things. Stranger Things is still there, like, oh my god, everyone loves Stranger Things, everyone watches Stranger Things. It could be made into t-shirts and lunchboxes and all this kind of stuff. They haven't got something like that. But that's why I think the Sony is really clever, like you said, Jake, is that rather than us turning into this weird society in which you're like, I am a Warner Brothers man, so I subscribe to HBO Max, and I also like Universal, so I'm subscribed to their, I think that there needs to start being collaboration. You can't just have every film studio then be like, we have our own streaming service, and then everyone is signed up to either every streaming service to watch those individual companies, or you start getting very loyal with your content, which I suppose is what television always has kind of been like, but you still buy, say, a Sky package and you have lots of channels included. So I think the Sony's been clever about it and saying that, like, look, if we launched our own streaming service, we're just like saturating the market, we're adding too much into this, we're going to use a streaming service which is already there, and we can collaborate with a streaming service like Tom said, which is doing really well at the moment and pumping out some of the biggest shows on streaming with some really strong IP, and maybe they can help us out, whether that means that they do want to make a Silk Spectre, is it? Or is it?
I think it's just Silk, if
No,
you're talking about...
Silk Spectre is Watchmen.
Yeah. There's so many Silk characters, yeah. So, but Spider-Woman, any of those, like, if they want to make that, even if it's not MCU related, then they could still... get a bit of a boost by being associated with them or being on Disney Plus, etc. So I think they have been
Amy
clever.
Pascal said, it's not MCU, it's MCU adjunct.
Yeah.
If you remember that.
What's that weird name they've got, like the Sony universe of Marvel characters or something?
Yeah, just call it the
They've got such a
Sonyverse.
Yeah.
Like, they've got such a weird name. I just call it the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, the
That's what I would
Spider-Verse
call
is
it.
there with the Miles Morales film.
I mean, the very fact that they've called their shared universe that is proof why, like, Disney Marvel need to be in control of Spider-Man. Like, still give Sony the money, fair enough, we're loaning a character here. Well, not we, I'm talking about the MCU, like we're a football team now. MCU. But, yeah, just, I think you are all right. We do need to see a bit more collaboration, because, like, the only other alternative is, as you said, everyone gets their own streaming service. That is honestly just going to end up breaking the market. Because, as you said, people will just be like, well, no, I'm not subscribing to everything. I'm just going to subscribe to these 3 things. And there will be, like, 3, maybe 4 of these, like, many streaming services that will do way better than the others, and all the others will just crash and burn. And then we'll just be left with Amazon, Disney, Netflix, and HBO Max, like we always were in the first place. Yeah. And somehow, BritBox will still be there.
Well, we have to remember that, yeah, there's the fact that they've got the Spider-Man ride, which I think is like, they just want to keep a hold of the overall control of the character and his interaction with the public, or however you want to say it. But also the fact that you have got so many streaming services. Oh, that's what I was going to say. You can go back to the days in which... So before Fox was bought by Disney, they had that agreement where they were like, oh, well, you can have a helicarrier if you give us Ego in the Guardians of the Galaxy films. So you could start to see that a bit more as well. It's like, oh, look, if you give us this Spider-Man character, then we'll trade you a Captain America trading card and, so whatever.
Are they Phil Coulson's the Captain America trading cards?
I'll give you these. On them. I'll give you these Pogs. Remember Pogs? Remember Alf? He's back.
There was bad blood between Marvel and Fox at one point, where they were like something about the X-Men, and then Marvel were like, well, fuck you, Fox, we're just going to cancel the X-Men series.
It was biblical, right? I cannot, like, people will just think like, oh yeah, they couldn't use the X-Men characters or Fantastic Four, so they got a bit pissy. No, they stopped their artists, like, doing commissions of X-Men characters. They wouldn't allow them to do the trading cards of that. They were like, as you said, they were like almost systematically destroying the X-Men's corner of the universe and going, hey, look, there's Inhumans. They're pretty much the same, but cooler. And not beholden to ridiculous convoluted plots of time travel and alternate versions of yourself and some weird amalgamation of Professor X and Magneto. I still don't know to this day how, like, that happened and why that created Onslaught. But
they aren't born with their powers. What kind of crap is that? There's a mist. You want to know about this mist? We'll tell you all about the mist.
But yeah, like just the bad bloods that happen, it was just biblical. Like Marvel did go out of their way, like even so much as like really trying to take any sort of like X-Men merchandise off the shelf that they could, just anything to like when they were releasing posters, like big posters of like these are all like the Marvel characters celebrating X amount of years of Marvel. Come see Marvel. You'd maybe have like Wolverine there, maybe possibly Cyclops, but that would be it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a ridiculous feud, and honestly, like I think in a way it sort of works. If Marvel's tactic was just to completely destroy the X-Men in every single way, and let's be honest, Fox helped
did
them
that themselves.
They helped. It was like they went, "Oh, ruin the X-Men, will you? Watch this, Dark Phoenix."
Let's go into our last story of the day, and this is a big one. So, merely hours. I thought they were going to wait until Monday if they were going to do something like this, but they didn't waste no time at all. Hours after the finale of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier dropped on Disney+, Marvel were like, fuck it, let's give the people what they want. Captain America 4. We're getting it, people. I thought this was never going to happen again. I thought they were going to, at least for quite a while, leave the Captain America to Disney+, with Sam Wilson. Did not think they were going to bring him back for the movies, but they've seen how successful this series has been, and they've gone, fuck, let's just make a fucking movie, and they're doing it. Dave, I go to you first. We briefly spoke about this in our review, so you can catch that, which is up now, but what are your more detailed thoughts on them going forward with Captain America on the big screen?
Yeah, like obviously that was more specifically about the finale and the future of the character. So yeah, we haven't really had like a big chance to talk about like specifically this film, which I think is good because, like you said, especially because Marvel seems to be going in more of a team-oriented direction. You don't expect as many solo films as well in the future, apart from if they're setting up new characters. But even when you look at something like Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel very much is setting themselves up as, you got Monica Rambeau, you got Scarlet Witch in there, etc. So it seemed that like Captain America could be one of those kind of characters in which he turns up in Avengers light films or team films and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm really happy that they're saying that, yeah, Sam Wilson deserves his own film. And that makes me hopeful, especially just by the concept of them doing it, means that it will be a Sam Wilson film. It won't be, Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Like it's you could have Winter Soldier there, Sebastian Stan as a supporting character, but it can't be like the TV show in which like these are the two lead characters. You have to have it be Sam Wilson is the lead character, and then anybody else is like a supporting role. And we heard in the finale to that show, where Isaiah Bradley said, it's going to be tough. And, even Sam said, yeah, I might even die. And so we actually kind of need to see that because as we seen with the TV series, they kind of give it lower stakes because, again, budget reasons, and they don't want to have anything too massive happen because they don't want people who only watch the films to miss out. So I think that the film will give us the chance to see how he's going to struggle, how he could be in this like life or death situation, and really see how the world responds to Captain America and how this Captain America interacts with the world. Because we've never really seen Cap go, hey, I'm just going to go be a superhero and save some people. He's always been aligned with some certain mission with S.H.I.E.L.D., with the Avengers. They're going out and doing this, they're going and doing that. He's got his personal connection with Bucky, obviously the whole Winter Soldier stuff, which kind of like lapsed into two films. So it'd be good to kind of see Cap become an actual superhero again. So whether it be like in Wonder Woman 84 or like in, I don't know, is there many other Marvel films in which we kind of see the character just like saving people? I don't think that really does happen very often. I kind of hope that this will be another chance to have that kind of like character who's there as a superhero and then he gets involved into this bigger situation. Or, we go back to, again, the kind of good old days of, again, the Sam Raimi, like, oh, here's the villain, etc. They usually appear as like this bigger, grander scale, but no, let's have like a film in which it's, Captain America and Crossbones or whoever, like let's have hero, villain, and let's have some like.
I don't think Crossbones is coming back from that.
No.
This is for throwing a building on my face.
If he survived a building, he can probably survive being exploded into pieces.
This is.
But unfortunately, he can't survive like Frank Grillo being pissed off at Marvel. So
He's got every right to be.
I'm 100% behind him.
I do think they didn't have to kill him. Like, come on.
That's the
This
thing.
is
They
for making
promised
me
him,
the catalyst to civil war.
that's the thing. They promised him one thing, and they told him he was going to have like 6 or 7 movies. At least this is according to Frank Grillo. Like, they signed him on for like a really long contract, and sure, that's just like to cover their backs or anything, so they just know they're going to have that actor there if they want to keep them that long. But still, from Frank's perspective, I can totally understand it.
Ever since the end of the first Avenger, I've wanted Red Skull back, so I wouldn't mind actually if Red Skull reappears. And hey, wouldn't that be cool if you had a Nazi, like they're in this conversation of race and everything, like he just turns up and he's just like, wow, what commentary that would be, in which he's like, you are inferior or something like that. You're like, oh god,
Well, Red Skull's hanging out in Vormir. He's doing the whole magical cloaky
he
stuff.
can't stay there forever. He
He can. He's trapped in this. He says it. He's like, I'm just here. Like,
oh yeah, like canon wise, but like in terms of like us wanting to see the character in like 10 years time, they can't be like, oh well, we can never use Red Skull again because he's always going to be there.
Well, what I think, Dave, because actually this idea has just come to my head because you mentioned Red Skull. I don't think you could get Red Skull the actual character. You haven't seen Watchmen, the HBO series, have you yet?
No.
Tom, have you seen that show?
I have, and I think I know what you're referring to as well.
So, without too much spoilers, there is a group within that show known as the 7th Cavalry who take inspiration from Rorschach.
Right.
So I think that could be a cool story angle where maybe a far right group take inspiration from the Red Skull and want to bring some of his principles back.
It could work.
I'm just getting bad Flag Smashers vibes now, though. I'm just like, again, I want that hero versus villain.
No,
and,
what I think it could be, more than anything, is just like, I mean, for a start, even though Red Skull said like he's trapped on Vormir, he's there to just guard the Soul Stone. I mean,
well, if the Soul Stone's gone, then
not just that. It's the fact that these.
It's not though. They put it back.
You're both ignoring the larger point that these are based on comic books. If they want Red Skull to come back, they will find a way to bring him back. And
exactly,
you know what?
that's what I'm saying,
all of us will accept it because we'll just be like, "Holy shit!" I disagree that he should come back for the next film. I think it would be quite funny though if like maybe the Flag Smashers are like teaming up again and they're just like. Or maybe not teaming up, but maybe they're meeting up and just being like, it's a shame that, our cause didn't win. Red Skull appears and he's like, I told you there were no flags. Just kicks their ass and it's just like, nah, I'll do it myself. Thanos style. But I do kind of like the idea of like a sort of fringe group with the Red Skull mask. But again, I side with Dave. That sounds a bit too much like the Flag Smashers. I think best way to go about it is either just bring in a completely new member of the Captain America Rogues Gallery that we haven't seen yet. There's still other like members of Hydra we haven't seen yet. But even more than that, we've got Julia Louis-Dreyfus as possibly Madam Hydra showing up. We've got John Walker now under her wing as US agent. They could very easily take a load of cues from the Hydra Cap run, maybe amalgamate it slightly so John Walker ends up being a form of Hydra Cap without it going like full Secret Empire. And like, because I always thought in the first season, with the whole thing with John Walker becoming Cap, like they were kind of doing a clever flip on the thing they did in the comics, which was the whole take back the shield thing, which is what a right-wing political conservative was saying about Sam Wilson. He was saying, we need to take the shield back. This is the hashtag, take back the shield. And like it was used there. So they could just bring that into the scene, like Dave said, like showing him actually going up against that adversity and like people going, no, we don't want you as Captain America. Why? Oh, we just don't want you as Captain America. Why me specifically? So like, 'cause there's obviously going to be that element. There are going to be so many people who are going to look at him and just go,
You're going to touch a button there that Dave... don't set Dave off regarding that.
No, my issue is with people who like don't understand. Like, oh, I need to see racism in programs to know it exists in the world.
I'm not saying like they
Morons.
need like we need to have like people being racist towards Sam, but there's the simple fact that even if people aren't overtly racist, even if they aren't like lining the streets saying "take back the shield," there's still going to be people who, whether they like knowingly do it or not, are not going to be okay with Sam being Captain America, and they're not going to know the reason why, apart from I just don't like him being Captain America. I just want Steve Rogers back.
Once you hear the review, you'll know the context of what Jake's saying. But again, like obviously, I mentioned Red Skull, so I don't have an issue with that being a theme of the film and having that in there to show who he is up against. But it's just that somebody specifically said, I don't see how Sam is struggling because you haven't shown me the people who were opposed to him, which again, I thought was just complete bullshit.
I mean, there is also the other points that like Johann Schmidt in the comics wasn't the only Red Skull. Wasn't the only one. There were another two.
But you say that the stone was put back, but that was so that the stone is there for when Thanos gets it when he kills Gamora. So technically the Soul Stone is destroyed now, so there's nothing for him to actually guard anymore. So there is that. But but I personally just want Red Skull, and in talks of this whole like group or solo villain thing is because everyone said like, oh, we need like a Doctor Doom, a Galactus, this big villain. I'm not saying Red Skull should be like the next big bad. I think Doctor Doom or someone would be good for that. But I just think that it would be cool to bring in somebody back like that, because there was like that comic run they had a few years ago where they had Uncanny Avengers in which Red Skull stole Xavier's brain.
Why did you remind me? I
using...
knew you were going to remind me.
Yeah. So, but I just think of like the Mad Cap, like, oh my God, the Red Skull has all this power kind of stuff. It would just be kind of fun to see him on like a larger scale again, rather than just relegated to just like, oh, he's just in World War II and now he's in space and now we never see him again. It'd be good to see him having some influence and power over the modern world, and especially as this big bad to... But if does Sam Wilson have like his own kind of rogues gallery, or does he always just have the Cap rogues?
It's pretty much just like the Cap rogues. Sometimes like variations thereupon, like a new version of Kraken or a new version of Flag Smash, stuff like that. Mostly his enemies was his main enemy, even though he didn't know it, was Steve Rogers.
I agree with you, Dave, that if you do bring Bucky into this, he should be a supporting character. But I'm actually thinking I don't want Bucky in this film. You know, I want this film to be titled Sam Wilson, Captain America. Yeah. And I really want it to be about him and his journey. You know, Bucky's doing his own thing, discovering to be the White Wolf in Wakanda somewhere. Do you know what I mean? I want to see Sam's story.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I am so intrigued to see what they do with John Walker. And, you know, with the U.S. agent, I am fascinated to see if he does come back, because I think there's way more story to tell there. Like, I want to see that showdown in the comics of them on the streets.
Yeah, I love
that. I thought we were going to get that in the finale of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That, you know, you'll hear on the review why I think I felt a bit shortchanged on that. But that still needs to happen. I feel as if that truly needs to happen, because while... spoilers here, while there is some form of redemption for John Walker in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I still feel as if he needs to take accountability for his actions. You know, the world saw him kill someone with the Captain America shield, and he didn't seem too fazed about it. Sam, I can imagine, still got a lot of issues with him. You know, like there still needs to be a lot there that needs to be told. So I would really like to see John Walker come back and face off Sam Wilson. I really want to see it.
My only concern with that is you just don't want to go down the criticism people have had before is like, oh, the villain always faces the anti-version of themselves. So like Iron Man versus Ironmonger, and, you know, Thor versus like a sort of evil Thor. It's that kind of... I don't want to see just that. I want to see Sam go against something very different and a new villain. I think if it's like the Thunderbolts and like you had Red Hulk or something in there, then that would be somewhat different. But you also don't want to like put this to say, oh, well, it's still the TV show, but it's just kind of like a higher budget TV show. I think they'd be better using US Agent as just like this sign of villain faction, for as a villainous faction for the MCU as a whole, but not always just be relegated to Sam, because again, you do open the door for people to still say, well, John should be Cap, or like, oh, look, a US agent. You kind of are almost like demeaning Sam by always affiliating him with this alternate blonde, blue-eyed version of the character by having him literally there in the same film. And because they haven't gone down the route of like Walker being very much like, a racist character or anything like that, it just, I don't know, I just would be worried about the reception that people could take.
I don't think it has to do anything about race. I think more about their last encounter. Not the last encounter in the finale, but how they left off in episode 5 and the aftermath of all that. I think that still needs to be cleared up, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just saying that the audience there would be certain audience members out there who, as we said, like with Tom and stuff, they are people who would have an issue with a black man being Captain America. And then if in that same film you give them like the more idealized version that they want, because they want John Walker, and there are people out there who say John Walker should be Cap, or like they actually prefer him, you're almost giving them that alternate choice in the film, and people could see that in the film and go like, and because he isn't racist, there's nothing for them to say like, oh, well, he is, like he is a good guy because there's so. There's no actual like irredeemable features of him.
I'm with you there, but I'm not sure if it needs to be that way, because like a whole, like in the comics when that big showdown happened, it was because like Sam was getting flack left, right, and center from like right-wing conservatives. People thought he wasn't doing a good job as Cap. Walker was just like, I could do a better job than him. It didn't have to be racially motivated. It was just he thought he could do a better job as Cap, so he was like pushed in that direction by people who were actually like quite racist and also Stevel. And the thing is like, if that fight happens in a movie, Walker's gonna get his ass absolutely handed to him in the end. So even if people are like, yes, this is my ideal Captain America, see him get knocked to the floor. Fuck. But yeah, I think, honestly, like, if John Walker probably will be a part of the film, I don't think he's going to be, like, the big main bad guy, though. I think, I reckon, like, they're definitely going to be, like, sort of building up whatever Valentina's organization is, be it Hydra, be it Leviathan, be it something else completely.
Don't call her that.
No, it's Val. It's Val she doesn't like.
Don't say it.
Damn it. Now she's in my head. But yeah, as I said, I think really the obvious route the film needs to take is that it needs Cap Wolf.
I knew you were going to say that. I was waiting for it. I was just waiting for the moment. Gotta bring out Cap.
Needed to wait until you least expected it.
God damn it.
Well, no, I tell you what, if they don't do John Walker, I'm not going to overly miss it. I just think it would be kind of cool. But I'm fine if they want to do a completely new villain. I tell you who I really do want to see in this, even if it's for one scene, Isaiah Bradley. I think that's got to be in there. I feel as if he is a really strong anchor for Sam, and he and the fact that he's also probably got some hot takes to Sam's way of thinking, so there can be some really cool friction there as well. So I really want to see them bring back Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley, because chef's kiss. He was probably the highlight for me of the whole Falcon and the Winter Soldier series.
He's just standing there on the side of action scenes, just like, probably could have done that kick a bit better. And you're just like, man, do you ever
lighten up, man?
Could be a nice time though, actually, for Patriot to, this could be a good project for him to like show up in as well.
Him and Torres.
And that.
Has got his wings.
Torres, yeah. It'd be nice if we see Torres in this. Actually, that'd be cool.
Those are probably more the characters from the TV show I would be more excited about seeing return. And I think I said before, I would be excited about seeing. I've said from WandaVision and stuff, I want to know what this new Avengers is going to look like. So I think that a film like this could do that, because Cap is often the leader of the Avengers. I think that you could very much see Sam being like, we need a new team or something, and going around. And even though before I said, this should be a Sam Wilson film, I think as long as they balance the line, as long as it isn't just like completely an Avengers film, I think you could have some fun with him, like, maybe learning the difference between a wizard and a sorcerer and that kind of stuff if he visits Doctor Strange or something. Because some people have said, who would you want to lead the new Avengers? Sam, Carol, Strange, and I think...
Sam. After
Yeah.
watching Falcon
Definitely.
and Winter Soldier, it's Sam. Absolutely.
And also,
Yeah.
just if you're having anyone lead the Avengers, if Captain America's on the team, it's Captain America.
it's always going to be
Yeah.
Cap.
Yeah,
always
Exactly.
gonna be
So
Cap.
that's why I think it'd be fun for him to like assemble the new team or something like that.
Right, so that brings us to the end of the news. All Marvel, as we said, but now we're going to go to our weekly comics pull list, which, as Tom liked to point out, is also the majority of Marvel. So here it is.
Well, after X-Men hit at the box office, all the studios started buying up every comic property they could get their dirty little hands on.
there was just so much coming out this week. I will start with the DC pick, seeing as we've had nothing from DC at all today. So we've got Detective Comics issue 1035. Batman has been framed for murder, and there's a guy after him who basically looks like a gothic knockoff of Kingpin. He's like this 8 foot tall mustachioed man of just muscle and fat, and the cover art looks like really he looks like quite imposing. So just it's basically the start of a new arc in Batman, carrying on for where they've been going. As I said, Batman's framed for murder, so that should be fun. That is actually not something I've seen in a Batman comic in a little while. So I'd be excited to see. I'm also excited just to see this new character whose name I've unfortunately forgotten, but it was quite cool. Moving then on over to Marvel. So I'm going to start with Savage Avengers issue 20 because I was looking at the artwork for it and noticed Spider-Man's face on there, well, his mask there. And I just had to delve a bit deeper because I was like, oh, what's Spider-Man doing with the Savage Avengers? Well, it turns out Conan and Rhino are having a team up and Spider-Man gets in the way. So yeah, if you want to see Conan the Barbarian and Rhino fight Spider-Man, do I really need to sell this more? It's Conan the Barbarian and Rhino versus Spider-Man.
When you first said it, in my mind, for some reason, I thought of like Craven, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I was like, oh wait, Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Hunter, Craven the Barbarian.
Now that's a crossover we need to see. Then we've also got Fantastic Four issue 31. I will forever recommend Fantastic Four. And in this issue, it's again start of a new arc, continuing off obviously where we've been before. Reed can finally use the Forever Gate. Now I'm not going to tell you what that is because you'll have to read to find out. But that's just not good. Anytime I hear the words Reed has like figured out how to use something, I automatically am filled with dread. And yeah, it does. It looks like the series is going to a couple of very crazy places. He's basically going to be entering a universe that no one in the Marvel multiverse has ever seen before, which, to be honest, wouldn't be hard seeing as the multiverse was rebooted a few years ago. So, like, all the universes are fresh, but whatever. But, as I said, it's Fantastic Four. It's Reed Richards being totally Reed Richards. Got to pick that up. And then finally, I have to recommend The Marvels issue 1. So Kurt Busiek is writing this book. It's basically sort of like a spiritual successor to Marvel, which was one of the best comics of all time. It was a comic that sort of showed the landscape of the Marvel universe through the lens of just your average guy on the streets, just this random photographer who was there for all the major events. And it's basically showing a more stretched out timeline for Marvel. I mean, it's as I said, it's a spiritual successor to one of the greatest Marvel comics of all time. So I definitely recommend checking it out, and hopefully it will live up to its namesake. So to rattle off the old names again, so we got Detective Comics issue 1035. We got Miles Morales. Oh wait, hang on, I didn't mention Miles Morales Spider-Man. We've got Miles Morales Spider-Man issue 25. Miles is getting his own clone saga.
How do you feel about that, Tom?
I don't know how to feel about it, and that's why it's in the list, because I'm just like, well, we need to know what's happening here. Just whenever I hear Spider-Man clone, I'm automatically just like, no, not again, not again. And as soon as I saw Miles Morales, it's clone conspiracy, I was like, no. But it's not Bendis writing Miles Morales Spider-Man anymore, so you never know, it could be decent. So yeah, to rattle off all those names, we got Miles Morales Spider-Man issue 25, we got Savage Avengers issue 20, The Marvels issue 1, Fantastic Four issue 31, Detective Comics issue 1035, and a quick shout out to Keanu Reeves' Berserker issue 2, which, I mean, it's Keanu Reeves comic, so come on, everyone pick that up. And you know what, I'll throw out a quick mention to some Image Comics. So the new issue of Department of Truth has come out, so I think many people are going to want to pick that up. If you haven't been reading the Department of Truth, my God, you've got to. It's crazy. And also crossover issue 6 is out as well from Donny Cates, another crazy series, so be sure to check that out. I know I will be.
Yeah, I'm probably, as always, I'll be picking up Detective Comics. And yes, thank you for shouting out Berserker #2, because fuck yeah, man. Keanu Reeves doing a comic and a badass, and it's being turned into a movie. Fuck yeah, man. It's metal as fuck, that comic. That's all I'll say.
I just can't believe he put himself in it, though. The fact that he looks like the character looks like him. I'm like,
why
really?
not?
You wrote yourself.
Why the fuck not? If you're Keanu
I'm wearing
Reeves,
him on my T-shirt right now.
Look at that. Look at
Yeah.
that. He's got
Wow.
a T-shirt right
Okay.
there.
Cyberpunk,
You know what I mean?
boy.
Why wouldn't you put Keanu Reeves? I just watched John Wick as well. Fucking hell. Like, come on.
And he was great in Cyberpunk. Even if people are listening here going like, oh, Cyberpunk. No, it was a great game and he was great. Fuck you.
It's good to hear, though, that like the Fantastic Four hopefully still getting some good storylines. Because like when we were mentioning about the X-Men earlier, that made me think again of like they were like crapping on the X-Men, but obviously the Fantastic Four kind of disappeared for a few years before as well, didn't they? Because they didn't have the film rights to them. So
The issue was they couldn't like quite destroy the Fantastic Four in the same way they tried to with the X-Men, because Hickman was just knocking it out of the fucking park writing for them. So yeah, and like they actually came to quite a nice natural end, sort of. I say end as if they died. They didn't die. But yeah, it is nice to see them like back in full flow, because I think they needed that break, because I think people had stopped appreciating Fantastic Four until like Hickman came around. I mean, the Mark Waid run was obviously incredible, but at the same time, like Fantastic Four were never like people's favorite superhero team. Hickman changed that, and since they've come back to the Marvel universe, I mean, I was a little apprehensive about Dan Slott doing it, but he's actually delivering quite well. So
it's just confusing when they put like other Fantastic Four and they're like, oh, the Fantastic Four is now these members, and you're like, what? You know. So I was like, I think that's where it gets.
My
a bit
favorite
confusing.
Fantastic Four team was Ghost Rider, Patch, Joe Fixit Hulk, and Spider-Man. It lasted 2 issues.
How is that the Fantastic Four? That's just 4 heroes who decided to team up.
Well,
So-
the real Fantastic Four were like shut away in some parallel dimension and shit was going down, so there needed to be another Fantastic Four. And also, by the way, for people who don't know, when I say Patch, I literally just mean Wolverine with an eye patch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even remotely like exaggerating.
But we need that good Fantastic Four adaptation in some way or form. So we need to have some good Fantastic Four comics in order to inform whatever they do later on.
Just base
Even
it on
though-
Hickman's run, and it'll just if they just did a shot-by-shot remake of Hickman's run spread out over 6 movies and 24 like separate seasons, I'd be like, yes, this is exactly what I want.
I don't even think you need to do that. You just need to do justice to what Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You just need, it's just, you know, those first, is it 34, 32, 34 issues?
I want to say 34.
Yeah, it's 34. Those first 34 issues are pretty much perfect. Just do justice to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Give
Yeah,
us
'cause
Mole
I-
Man.
Yeah, bring in Mo Man.
I want pure like Fantastic Four. I don't want like their kids or anything like straight away.
Yeah.
Nah. It just, like The Flash, it needs to be balls to the wall, batshit insane.
Right, so that brings us to the end of the episode then. We talked about a lot of news and a lot of fantastic comics that are hitting your stands there. So as I say every week, the comic book shops are now open. Your local comic book store needs you more than ever, so go to your local, pick up these comics, and keep, chat to nerds and see what they're reading, and you might find out some cool other stuff to read. So everyone, thank you for listening to this episode. We appreciate you people coming on board every week to listening to us talk shit about Cape stuff and all the news going on. But if you want to continue the conversation, you can do it on all our socials. So, Tom, where can the people be able to find you?
They can find me on Twitter @GapperBoy, where I'll deliver fresh takes on modern superhero culture and where the hell is Capwolf, and give me Hydra Cap or give me death. This is the new hill I will die on. Give me Hydra Cap or give me death. So yeah, you can just basically catch me there. As these guys said, any questions, any queries, any recommendations you want, just chuck them my way. I'm always happy to talk comic books with literally anyone.
Release the Capwolf cut.
Yep. Give it to me.
Dave,
I know that's why they cut out the virus storyline. I know it's why.
Dave, how about yourself? What are you also getting up to?
Yeah, you can catch me on Twitter at David Oscar. Catch me on Letterboxd, where I'm watching, like I said, loads of weird, bizarre Japanese films, etc. And yeah, just keep an eye out on freshtakehub.com and on Twitter, where hopefully I've got a new video project coming out tied in with what we were talking about with elements of Captain America, etc. So I'm hoping to get that out this week. And yeah, plenty of other stuff in the pipeline.
Yeah, and you can also find me on Twitter at SweatyJake, and you can also catch me on Letterboxd talking about all these martial art movies that I've been watching recently. That's at Jake Hart. And as for the show, you can find us on Twitter at Capes Cows Mask, and we're also on Facebook at Capes Cows and Masks, and whatever streaming service, whatever. There's no name for like places where you get podcasts from, is there? It's just a weird thing.
Hosting site.
Hosting, yeah, that's what I mean. Somebody needs to come up with a name. So, yes, wherever you get podcasts from, whether that be Anchor, Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever, subscribe, follow, leave us a rating, share, everything all helps us go up in the rankings.
Rate our attractiveness out of 10.
Yes.
Do it.
Well, we only get 5, unfortunately.
Wait, what? What happened to the other 5?
Not applicable for Capes, Cows and Masks,
Banished to the negative zone.
It's left the universe.
Yes.
So yeah, the best thing you can do is recommend us to all your geeky friends and keep expanding this family of Capes, Cows and Masks. So again, thank you for listening. We'll see you all next week. Stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Put on some sunscreen, damn it.